Um, so I'm Nuno Freire. I'm going to speak about language information in the Europeana metadata. And this is the work that was done together with my colleagues Paolo and Antoine from the Europeana Foundation, and Eirini and Arne Stabenau from the National Technical University of Athens. So let me start by giving a very quick introduction to Europeana and language tags. So Europeana is a digital library initiative from the European Union. It is supported by the European Commission since 2008. It publishes over 54 million digital objects and currently has more than 4,000 data providers, which covers libraries, archives, and museums from all across Europe. So from over 44 countries or from 44 countries. Also important to introduce is the Europeana data model. So it is the data model under which this network of sharing of data work is based on. So it's a data model that is maintained by Europeana in cooperation with the members of the network, the aggregators and the data providers. So it's a model that follows the semantic web principles. So supports reuse of external linked data sources and supports also multilingual data. So today I'm also going to talk about language tags. So let me also introduce some of the standards which are related with language tags. So language tags are standardized codes that are used to identify human languages in the internet. So they are used in several technologies within the internet. And they allow the representation of languages and their variants for countries, regions, and scripts. It combines codes from several standards, which allow us to represent the different languages, the regions, the countries, and so on. And so language tags, their syntax and their structure is dictated by a standard which called BCP 47, and along with this standard, it's also a related registry that contains all the language subtags which can be used within the structure of a language tag. So, and these language tags are used in different technologies in the internet. So XML, RDF, HTML, HTTP communication can also use them, and there are other cases. So why are we working in the area of language tags? Why are we interested in this around Europeana? So Europeana has a very high level, at the level of strategy, aims to provide ways for navigating the website, the European website in multiple languages. Also read all the editorial content should be available in multiple languages. Read also more ambitious now is the reading the text within the metadata of each item, also in as many languages as possible, and also searching across in the data set can also be done, should also be done across languages. This strategy is being realized relying a lot on machine translation and using the English as the private language. We have there have been some earlier studies around language information in Europeana, which have identified that we have there's some data quality problems related with language information. it's not always present, and even when it's present, it's not always correct. It's not following the standards. So we are interested in knowing what is the current status of the Europeana dataset regarding this language information, and we want to know if we can improve it. Europeana already has a language normalization process that helps us to improve the quality of the data, of the language information, but it does not cover all the data. So we know that there are still some problems. And we knew from an earlier study from 2018 and 19 from Peter Kirawi, more or less what the picture was some years ago. And we wanted to know what is the difference to the current status. So we are also motivated by one project in this area around Europeana, which is the Europeana Translate project, which is tackling automatic translation focused on metadata from cultural heritage. And it's tackling some challenges of this particular case, which is the fact that metadata often lacks context for automatic translations, because the text in the metadata is very often a bit too short. And there are also specific terms for used in cultural heritage, which the machine translation needs to be trained for this particular context. So Europeana Translate is going to create then machine-trained specialized machine translation models for cultural heritage metadata. And it's trying to do it for the 24 official languages of the European Union. So from the 24 languages into English. And the training data that is being collected for the project is going to be shared with the community later on. So in this study, we investigated whether it was desirable to improve the normalization of language tags performed in the ingestion system of Europeana. And for the Europeana Translate project, we are trying to see if we could increase the available language tag metadata for training the automatic translation systems for cultural heritage. So regarding the first part of the study, we did a study on the current status of the Europeana dataset. So we investigated all the metadata records in Europeana, so over 54 million. We investigated only the metadata which is submitted by the cultural heritage institutions. So we didn't use the part of the metadata which is created by Europeana itself. We analyzed the metadata by analyzing all statements with literal values, which it's about 2.8 billion, and we checked if they contain language tags. And another thing we took into consideration while analyzing was the fact that contextual entities, which can be reused across many records and across many providers, we made sure that we weren't counting more than once for those. So, and then we measured the presence of language tags and their compliance to the BCP 47 standard. And we also analyzed the presence of language subtags, so the ones about language variants, the scripts or extensions. So, and what did we find? We found that around 35% of literals were language tagged. And of course, not all literals are supposed to be language tagged. Some may contain dates or identifiers which are not supposed to really have a language tag. And comparing with the study from Peter Kirawi that I mentioned in an earlier slide, we have noticed a growth in distinct language tags from 422 to 608. And we also found a decrease in some more exotic language tags with extensions. In terms of compliance, we found around 7.8 million tags, which is less than 1%, which are not compliant with BCP 47. Then these cases are usually related with use of three-letter codes for languages instead of the two-letter code, or using an extension without the main language tag. And then there are really some misuse use of language tags. And we also noticed that around 7.68 million could be normalized with the current normalization process that Europeana has in place for the new data that comes into Europeana. Regarding subtags, we detected around 27.7 million language tags containing subtags. And it appears that data providers, when using subtags, they know what they are doing. And in this case, all the subtags were found to be valid. We just found cases with extensions, of extensions, which at the level of Europeana, the users won't really know what they mean. So they are extensions. They are not registered in the IANA registry. So they are still valid, but they are probably not informative for data reusers. So regarding our work in providing data for Europeana Translate. So the training data requirements for the project, Europeana Translate train models for the 24 official languages of the European Union. And for training these models, it required the same text in English and another language. But in general, any text that would be tagged with one of the 24 official languages of Europe would also be useful. So, and in this work, we use the Europeana dataset as the source to find this language tag text to provide for training the machine learning models. So we investigated the non-compliant language tags values in Europeana, and we noticed that they originated from datasets that have been ingested in Europeana before the language tag normalization was implemented in Europeana. So to provide language tag metadata to Europeana Translate, we have applied just the language tag normalization on a data dump of the Europeana dataset, extracted the data, and then provided it to the project. Because we could not, it's not possible just to apply the normalization process to the data that is already ingested in Europeana. So this process or the language normalization that Europeana has in place is based on a vocabulary which is published by the Publication Office of the European Union. It's called the Language Named Authority List. It provides for each, this vocabulary provides for each language the ISO codes, the two-letter codes, the three-letter codes, also codes for macro languages and language families, and the names of these languages in the 24 official languages of Europe. So with all this correspondence with the different codes and the language names, it is possible to normalize many of the language tags which are not compliant and make them compliant to BCP 47. So for this process, we started with the Europeana dataset with a dump. The language tags are normalized on the data dump, and we extract the text from the metadata. So the text is extracted only from a selection of properties which are considered important to be translated, and only considering the 24 official languages of the European Union. So two groups of text are selected, metadata values in just one language, and pairs of values in two languages, one of them being English. So basically, one example of what we are trying to achieve using the case of the pairs French and English. So before normalization, we had around 1,900,000 tags or text tagged as French, and around 3,300,000 tagged as English. With the algorithms of the project, we could detect around 58,047 pairs. After normalization, we increased the number of values tagged as French and as English, which led to an increase in the available pairs as well. So these are just some numbers about the amount of language text that we were able to obtain by descending order of. So it was in the order of millions of values for many languages, starting with German, Polish, English, Dutch, and so on. This led to the detection of several data pairs. So here we are at the round of just a few thousand for each one. So these are the numbers about the gains that we obtain by the normalization. So for some language, it was quite a significant number. For other languages, we were not able to obtain much more. These were the actual gains in terms of the pairs, so where we could manage to obtain additional language pairs for some of the languages. And well, just moving to the final conclusions. The cultural heritage institutions do provide language tagged values in their metadata. The values are not always compliant with BCP 47, and sometimes they use the language name instead of an ISO code, or use a 3-letter code instead of using the 2-letter code. We also found that Europeana could improve the language tags in its metadata if it would apply the normalization procedure that it already has in place, and if it could apply to the older data, which was ingested before the language normalization was implemented. So, and this benefit would include 7.68 million tags. An increase of this number could be significant, and 800,000 tags actually relate with the 24 official languages of the European Union, which is the thing that is more important for Europeana. So thank you for your attention. We have an implementation of the language normalization prototype available. And if you want to use the data that we have collected for any work regarding requiring language tagging or automatic translation, so let us know. We will make it available early into 2023.
Okay, thank you very much, Nuno. We have time for some quick questions. So the first question is from Jakob. Have you tested automatic language detection to extend and/or check the language tags?
I believe that is part of the Europeana Translate project. It's a step that happens afterwards. So we provide the data, and then at the later step, they do apply language detection, or they are trying to, or it's something that is being done at the moment, but we don't have the results yet. So we don't really have nothing concrete to say about it at the moment.
Okay, then another, maybe this is related, but you mentioned in the beginning that only 35% of the literals had tags. Did you look at the other 65%? Just, I mean, quickly, were there any strings there that should have been language tagged, or were they all like DOIs or other things that shouldn't even have those?
No, we didn't make that analysis because there are many. The Europeana data model has many data elements, so many different properties. So it was a bit hard to make that analysis. So we haven't done it yet. No.
Okay. Final question. Does Europeana suggest improvements to the providers?
Oh yeah, definitely. So we detected these improvements that we have detected were detected in datasets which were ingested some years ago. So it looks like these problems do happen in cultural heritage institutions. So they are not really fully compliant with the standard, with the BCP 47, and I think that's really important for nowadays to make sure that that their data is correctly understandable when it's being shared across in the world of linked data.
Okay, thank you very much. I see that there